Hello everybody, Timothy Bailey with Project Learn here today with our video. So today, because of recent activities and things going on in our country, I thought we would look at something appropriate for that topic. So we are going to look at prejudice and discrimination. And this picture sort of sums up both of those. We'll get into them a little more. But you can see that there is one group, and I think it's important in this picture. The group is of one color, blue, right? And then over here we have an individual clearly not being allowed to be part of that group. Also notice that that person happens to be a different color, orange, right? This visual, even without an explanation, is very good for the topic of prejudice and discrimination. But we can also look at the dictionary. So prejudice, you can see here, is an unfair feeling of dislike for a person or group because of race, sex, religion, etc. And we're going to look at about 5 or 6 examples. You can see the sample sentence here. The organization fights against racial prejudice. So this organization is trying to fight against this idea. Another partial sentence, evidence of prejudice against women and minorities. So here, maybe someone or other groups have a prejudice against women and minorities, right? And then here's some more, religious, racial, and sexual prejudices. Okay, so prejudice really is all about the feeling, the attitude, the idea that someone might hold against other people of a group. Discrimination, which is related, is the practice of unfairly treating a person or group of people differently from other people or groups of people. So really, prejudice leads to or can lead to discrimination, particularly in things like companies or organizations or school or something like that. Because of, right, if we go back, because of, I went too far, the prejudice, because of the unfair feeling or of dislike, a company decides to say we will not hire African Americans, for example, or we will not pay female workers the same amount. And they may not say that, they probably won't, but they might still do this. Because of their prejudice, they are discriminating against people. Okay, so that's how those two really go together. And I found this picture. I thought this was an amazing picture. I assume the woman here made the sign, right? This gives us a good idea. So not all blacks are criminals. If you believe, right, that all blacks or all African Americans, right, are criminals, then that is a prejudice. If then you say we will not, or we're not hiring African Americans or blacks, then that is discrimination. Or we will not allow them to come into the park, or anything like that. Look at the next one. Not all whites are racist. Again, and it doesn't matter who is black, who is white, who is a man, who is a woman, right? If you hold the idea that this group as a whole is this or this, right, then that is the prejudice, right? So not all whites are racist. Certainly some are, certainly some are not, right? Not all cops are bad, right? Again, right, this is not something we would usually hear when we're talking about prejudice, but prejudice doesn't have to be about race or gender or any of the things we're going to look at. An unfair feeling, right, of dislike towards this group, thinking they are all this, is still a form of prejudice. And then I like the little lesson at the end, ignorance comes in all colors. So all kinds of people, it doesn't matter your race or your gender, right? You can still, right, have ignorance, right? A lack of knowledge. So let's look at some of our vocabulary words. We have race, right? And quickly, race is a biological sort of construct, right? My wife, for example, is from China. Her race is Asian. Another word to go with that is a social construct, is the idea of ethnicity, right? So this could be your country, right? So my wife is Chinese. That would be her ethnicity, possibly. In China, we could also say her ethnicity would be Han, H-A-N, which is the dominant group of Chinese people. Okay. In other words, sex. Again, this is about the reproductive system that you are born with, that your DNA has instructed your body to develop, right? So male and female. A related social construct, although it doesn't have to be, is gender, right? So male and female, and the things society, any society, America or otherwise, would tell you to do because of that. We also have sexual orientation, right? So are you heterosexual, so a male and female? Are you homosexual, two men, two women? Okay. Another one that is currently often talked about is one of language, right? In this country, whatever country you're in, do you speak that country's language? So we're in the United States. Do you speak English? Is it important? Must you speak English? Right? This is the idea. And then another one, also important recently, is immigrants and refugees. Okay, are they welcome? Are they not welcome? Are they important to the fabric of the country? Okay, these are what we're looking at. And I want to tell you that I do have some pictures that are very uncomfortable pictures. They are realistic pictures. They are pictures you might see if you go into some cities at any given time, or unfortunately on some of our college campuses. So I tried to give realistic pictures to show exactly what it is that some of the individuals who fit into these groups might be dealing with. Okay. And we're looking at isms and phobias. These are the two suffixes, right, for the kinds of prejudices we're looking at. For example, to the word race, we add the ism suffix, right? So this is the prejudice against race. This is an old picture. So at one point in our history, the United States history, African Americans had to ride on the back of the bus. If you notice, all of the white people are in the front and the African Americans are in the back. Right? And then there was a lot of protesting. Martin Luther King, various other amazing people, Ida B. Wells, right, helped to end this particular issue regarding racism. They did not end racism. Obviously, we can see today racism still exists. They fought and ended this particular issue involved with racism. Sexism. So we talked about what sex was. And here the two are sort of related. So I have a sort of an infographic. This one, because of the idea people had about sex, male and female, they then created roles or rules about gender. So the man, right, works, drives the car, fixes things. I'm not sure what he's doing here. Education, perhaps. The female stays at home, takes care of the baby, cooks, and she likes to do gardening, right? So because of a sex that someone was born with, society, and not just American society, societies throughout the world have done this, they have applied certain rules to the gender, right? Women must do this or they can only do this, right? A lot of histories of countries around the world, women could not go to school, for example. They could not have a job, okay? Luckily now, much of this has been changing, right? So I do not feel, for example, strange when I am taking care of the baby, whereas someone in the past might have, a man, right? Okay. So this is sexism and gender. We just don't have a word. We don't have genderism, right? So it's just sexism is the term being used. Homophobia, right? Remember homosexual, right? Male and male, female and female. And oftentimes you will see people like this, unfortunately. So they are very much opposed to homosexuals or gay or lesbian people, right? Sometimes this comes from a religious standpoint, but not always. It can also come from a pseudo-scientific standpoint, right? Which means not really a scientific standpoint, right? So they have signs, right? This is a derogatory term. Derogatory means a bad word for a person, right? A negative word, a prejudiced word, a discriminatory word for a group of people. So this word here, right, is a derogatory word for homosexuals. Okay. We also have the issue of language, which doesn't also have its own fancy word with an ism or phobia, right? And there have been signs like this before. Welcome to America, now speak English. In fact, if you talk to people, they might tell you, right, in America, you need to speak English. There are, of course, many other people, such as myself, even though I teach English, right? Being American is not about your language, right? It's about other greater things, right? But we do have a large amount of prejudice against people because of their language. And other countries have this as well. Canada, in the past, has had trouble because they have French and English as official languages. And at times, the English-speaking citizens of Canada have not been very respectful for the French-speaking citizens, and possibly vice versa. Xenophobia is a fancy term for fear. Phobia means fear. Fear of foreigners, right? People from somewhere else. And you might see these folks, right? A lot of signs about closing the borders and about illegals and things like this. All of these people, right, want no foreigners to come here, no immigrants, no refugees. Sometimes they don't care if they're legal or not legal. The ironic thing for these folks is that most everyone who is in this country came illegally when we killed the Native Americans and ran most of them off of their land. However, they seem to not grasp that point, right? So you might see them. This is xenophobia. And again, just to return to a couple ideas. So the wonderful lady here on the left, right, does a good job of pointing out, without intending necessarily, what prejudice is. If you have this idea that all blacks are criminals, you have prejudice, right? And then she offers a nice culmination here, right, about the truth about ignorance, right, of race, of gender, of sexual orientation, of language. The other thing is, and this is a wonderful thing, I've read articles about it before, right? Children are not born homophobic. They're not born racist. They're not born sexist. Children are born, just like other animals, with the ability to distinguish difference, to see a difference. They are not born evaluating the quality of that difference or ranking the difference. That, sadly, their parents or society teaches them. And for me, my last thing, perhaps the greatest way that I find to work to resist this, to fight against this, is through the experience of other people. And I love this picture for two reasons. One, I love this picture because it's got the children in it. After just talking about the fact that children are not born this way. And I love the smile on this woman here. To experience other people is perhaps the single greatest way that we can fight to end these isms and phobias, the prejudice and the discrimination that we have been talking about. I hope this was helpful. Think about it next time you go out. Think about it when you're watching the news. Thank you and have a great day.